Welcome to the Lovestead.
Hello, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. My name is Jessica, and this is my May vlog for the second half of May. I never know how to phrase that. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Great to see you. I tend to read books that fall into one of two categories. On the one hand, the cozy, light, and whimsical. On the other, dark and twisted. Because I do tend to read dark and twisted stories, please make sure to check your trigger warnings before picking up any of the books that I talk about in my videos. I don't share trigger warnings because I think that they're spoilery, but if you have any concerns, I recommend checking out the app Storygraph. They have excellent information on triggers. It's Saturday, May 17th. I was originally going to have coffee with a friend, but I'm just not feeling well. I live with a chronic illness called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, causes a lot of chronic pain, fatigue, and other issues. And I'm having a bit of a flare-up here this weekend, probably because of the weather and stress that I've had in the month of April, kind of bleeding over and feeling the effects of April here in May. So I'm having some pain and some fatigue, and my allergies are really bad, and it's sometimes I can push through it, but I know where the limit is, where like if I push through a certain level, I'm going to end up really sick, you know? So I am at the point today where I'm like, I should not push through this because I will end up really sick. So I'm taking it pretty easy today. I just took care of my small animal room where my bunnies, my birds, and my frogs lived, and cleaned all their area. I'm going to run some laundry. I got crickets at the pet store for the frogs. And just the rest of the day, probably just spend the day reading. I have a friend coming over and they're going to cook dinner since I'm not feeling the best. Like, I have the best friends. Like, truly, I have such an amazing support system. I am a very, very lucky human. So that is the plan for today, and probably tomorrow as well. Hopefully I'll be up to getting out to the barn tomorrow. But what am I reading? On audiobook, I am finishing up a book that I started in the last vlog for middle grade May. I am loving this book. It's called Meticulous Jones and the Skull Tattoo. It's book 1 in the Inkbound series by Philippa Leathley. And this is about Meticulous, and she lives in London, and there's like, it's like an urban fantasy because there's London and then there's New London, which is magical. And what happens in this magic system is when you turn 10 years old, 10 or 11, you get a tattoo, and the tattoo determines your fate. Anyway, I'm not on the clock right now, y'all. I'm not answering that. I'm sorry if my employer sees that. It is Saturday. I can show you a timestamp if you would like. So Meticulous gets her tattoo, and her tattoo basically says that she's going to end up murdering someone in a magic way. And now she's dealing with the fallout of that, and her family's dealing with the fallout of that. And there are twists and turns, and I am loving this. I want to reread this with my eyes immediately. So I need to go to the library and see if they have it at the library, because I want to, I'm missing some details, I think, as I read it on audio, which is why I try to just read like mystery thrillers, contemporary, just certain genres I reserve for audiobook, because with books I really want to be immersed in, I can't read it on audio. I listen to audiobooks while I'm doing barn chores and other things. So I want to reread this and be completely immersed in this world because I'm just enjoying it so very much. I will finish it today, but I am going to see if I can like immediately get a copy of it from my library, and maybe book 2. And then maybe just like skim through book 1 to catch things I didn't before, and yeah, continue this series because it's so good. I would put it up there with Harry Potter. I would put it up there with Amari and the Night Brothers. I would put it up there with Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. Fabulous. Check it out. The book that I'm reading with my eyes right now is the Lovestead buddy read for May, and that is Acts of Desperation by Nolan. This is an adult literary contemporary about obsession. It's kind of falling into the unhinged woman genre. or subgenre, which I love. I'm obsessed with it. I am really liking this book so far. Parts of it have been difficult to read, but other parts of it have been validating, and other parts of it have been like, ooh, this is just so twisted and delightful. Let me read you some quotes. So basically, like, this woman gets into a relationship that's pretty one-sided, and she kind of erases herself and functions only in service to him, is what's going on. And page 77, she is with her father, and her dad kind of wants to know what's going on with this relationship, but she doesn't want to tell him. So on page 77, it says, I wish I could unburden myself, but I couldn't verbalize what was happening because doing so would bring it into existence. So far, it was all taking place in my head with no verification from an outside party. And as long as I kept it that way, I could suppress it. That urge you have with an envelope of results delaying the future in which you are unwillingly privy to terrible news. I knew also that if I began to describe more or less anything about Kieran and what our relationship was like, I would upset my dad. The split in me was so wide that these two states could coexist. One, I knew that my relationship was strange and uneven and not reciprocal, and that speaking about its reality would confuse and upset people who loved me. Two, I didn't feel it to be those things. Like, she's so lost in this relationship. And then further down on page 78, it says, the denial of information to Dad made me feel weak and depressed at the irreconcilable distance between us, which was so much smaller than between most people, but still existed and always would. Sometimes this distance between everyone comforted and pleased me. I would die knowing things about myself that nobody else on earth did. There were experiences that lived only in me and can never be replicated or recounted. And sometimes, like now, the distance seemed too sad to live with. And then further down, page 79, it says, I turned my face to the side and stared out my window. I was filled not only with misery about what he was saying and his awareness of it, but also with shame at how squalidly I was wasting my short life. I was sitting in a car with someone who loved me more than life itself, and yet all I could think about was Kieran. How impoverished my internal life had become. The scrabbling for a token of love from someone who didn't want to offer it. That sentence right there is the crux of this story. The scrabbling for a token of love from somebody who didn't want to offer it. And parts of this hit me really hard. And like I said, parts of it are really entertaining. So very much enjoying this. Hello, it is Monday, May 19th, and I just finished work for the night. It's about 7:30 p.m., finished teaching and all that, and I'm about to make dinner, but I have not done my own readathon yet this May. So in May, I'm doing a 24 and 48 spring readathon that I host on my Discord that has a little bingo board, and I have not done it. And like every time I'm like, this is the weekend, I'm going to do it this weekend, and then something comes up and I don't do it. So I've decided once again to take my own advice and improvise a little bit. So what I decided to do is that by the end of the month, I want to have read for 24 hours. And I'm going to do the timer method
that so many booktubers do, where they time themselves and they try to read for 24 hours. Not necessarily 24 hours straight, but try to get 24 hours of reading in. So I'm going to do that and do the timer method and see if I can read for 24 hours by the end of the month. And then I'm also going to do the 2 activities. One is any kind of cozy activity, and then the other is to eat my favorite dessert. So I'm going to try to do both of those things, as well as read for 24 hours in this vlog. Wish me luck. You decide. Oh, we're going straight across today, huh? Come on, Maggie.
Hello vlog. It is Tuesday, May 27th. The month is winding down and I haven't done a full check-in in a while. I have a lot of books to talk to you about. I finished Inkheart and I think I might have talked about Inkheart, but I ended up really liking this book. It's kind of a new all-time favorite middle grade, I'm not even gonna lie, and I immediately went to see if there's more in the series, and there's not yet. It's still a work in progress, so I'm really hoping we get the next one soon. I think it's scheduled to come out later this year, but hopefully we don't have another situation like we have with Nevermore, where the publication date just keeps getting pushed back and back and back. But I really liked it. I like the magic system. I like the characters. I like the plot. Like, it really is in line for me with like a Harry Potter, with a Nevermore. Yeah, definitely one of my top middle grade fantasies. Keeper of the Lost Cities is another favorite. I'm really excited to keep reading it. And I believe I gave it 4.5 stars. Then the next thing I picked up on audio was What I Ate in a Year by Stanley Tucci. And I did not enjoy this one. I thought it was mislabeled or misgenred, if that's even a word, misgenred. This is more of a diary than it is a memoir. I would not categorize this as a memoir at all, because it's just Stanley's diary throughout a year of what he eats in a year. Like, that's literally what it is diary entries of everything that he eats in a year and his thoughts that are all associated with that. And he's really grumpy in this. Chelsea Reed in her Goodreads review noted he's really grumpy in this, and he is. And to me, it just felt like a lot of like pretentious whinging and complaining about things that aren't really problems, Stanley. They're they're not even first world problems, and that most people in the first world deal with them. They are like 1%er problems, you know? Like the people on the tippity top of the first world problems. problems that aren't problems. He just was whining on and on about these things, and I didn't enjoy it at all. And I have not read Taste by him. And based on what I'm seeing of reviews on this one, it sounds like Taste is much better than What I Ate in a Year. So I might give that one a try and see how it goes. But this was very much a miss for me. Now, Stanley does have a very distinct voice. You know, as you read it, you know that, like, yeah, this is Stanley Tucci writing here. He has a voice. You know, there's that distinct voice. So I'll give him that, and maybe that just shines through a little bit better. Maybe he's better organized in Taste. I don't really know. I'll probably give it a try still, though. I gave What I Ate in a Year 2 stars. And then the audiobook that I will likely finish tonight is called Puzzleheart, and this is by Jenn Reese. This is a middle grade fantasy, and it's a sentient house that's like an escape room. And this kiddo and their father go to the Puzzleheart house because that's where their grandmother lives. Their father and their grandmother have a really strained relationship. So this sweet little kiddo is really hoping that by going and visiting the grandmother at the puzzle house, they'll be able to smooth over the relationship or fix the relationship. And they call it the plan for fixing their dad, because their dad has had really bad depression. And the kid's name is Perigee. And Perigee feels responsible for fixing their father's depression. There's trans rep in this. Perigee uses they, them pronouns. They meet some really cute friends when they're at the puzzle house. There's a kitten named Banana Peel, because Banana Peel's always underfoot. And I thought that was really adorable. Some really exciting, adventurous things happening as I'm heading into the end of the book. Just some, like, the climactic stuff that's going on is like, whew, it's heart pounding, it's intense. So good plot, good action, a lot of important themes addressed here around mental health and healthy boundaries and family dynamics that I think, had I read this book as a middle grader, would have soothed my soul, would have been so healing and important for me. So I'm so glad that those things are addressed in this, family dynamics kinds of things and boundaries, etc. And I'm sure it's going to get at least a 4, if not higher, by the time that I finish. All right, on to the physical books. I finished Acts of Desperation by Nolan. This was really well done. I gave it 4 stars. I tell you what, this does such a good job of illustrating unhealthy relationship dynamics, especially the gap in the power dynamics between men and women and the power that men have over women, especially when it comes to sexuality and like gender identity and expectations around gender roles. There are still expectations. We have not done away with gender role expectations just because we know that they exist and because women want them to be done away with. They still are alive and well, and it really is illustrated in this book. It honestly was so accurate and covers just some real hard-hitting topics, and it just left me feeling this like really gross, sick feeling in my stomach by the time I was finished reading it. And to me, like, good art is art that makes you feel something, even if what it makes you feel is icky. And definitely, this book definitely made me feel icky, but I respect it as a piece of art, and I think that's just evidence of it being well done. So I don't know if I will ever reread this. I'll put it back on the shelf and see, give it a year, see if I have any desire to pick it up again. Here's a quote in connection to the title on page 127. I wonder now at my desperation to perform domestic acts for him. I wanted more than anything to present him with the products of my labor, for him to see how invested I was in maintaining our life and how joyfully I invested. I was even happy when I baked him a cake or cooked a meal which he would then ignore or eat without thanks. I was happy when I watched a jacket of his which stank, unbeknownst to him, of cigarettes and weed. I was happy. I smiled. I sang when I scrubbed the toilet on my knees. The bleach smelled strong and delicious and burned the bloody creases I had bitten into my fingers and thumbs. Page 128, kind of going along with this theme, it's easy to disappear beneath the incessant cycle of chores necessary to keep a pleasant and clean home. Women who once were individuals despair of being made into nothing more than a wife, housekeeper, mother, a person whose identity is secondary to their ability to make things easier for everyone else. Yeah, so that's just a little taste of the writing style to see if you might like this one. As I said, I gave it 4 stars. Maggie's making her bed. She's scratching at the floor, and that's what that noise is. So sorry if it's annoying. After I finished that, I picked up the first book in the trilogy along for this round of trilogy, and it's book 1 in Frostheart called Frostheart, and this is about Ash, who is a song weaver, but in his stronghold called the Fura Stronghold, song weaving is illegal because they think that if you are able to song weave, that these monsters will be able to then control you. It's a whole magic thing, right? So he ends up getting ostracized from his community and ends up on a Pathfinder sled, which is sort of like a merchant ship, only it's a sled in the snow because it's like a snow winter world. And that's the adventure, and that's what's going on with this adventure. And his Yeti guardian Tobu goes along with him. And I will probably finish this tonight. I've got like 100 pages left, and I'm getting through my 100 pages a day with this one pretty easily. So that's where I'm at with my physical read. And thus, I think you are updated on reading progress. Personal updates, I've just been having to help out at the barn a lot. I have my in-ground garden sort of started. I found a fella in town, very sweet guy, who I paid him to make me some raised garden beds and took them over to the spots. And I think I showed you a clip of the raised garden beds. Now I have to fill them and plant them. And I wanted to this past Memorial Day weekend, but I couldn't because my allergies were just absolutely out of control. Like, after getting just the raised beds put in and stuff, I almost went into anaphylaxis just from seasonal allergies on my drive home. Like, my throat and my eyes both started to swell up and close up. So I needed to stay indoors and probably will have to stay indoors for the next couple of days yet, for this like round of pollen to die down a bit before it will be safe for me to be out and doing things. So hopefully I'll get a lot of reading and video making done in that time.
Hello, it is Wednesday the 28th, and I am finally getting through The Good Witch. I'm only on episode 2. I'm so far behind, and I've only got like 4 days to catch up. So I'm going to have to do like 2 or 3 episodes a day. But so far, season 4 has been super fun. But I'm only on episode 2. I just have not had much TV watching time. But yesterday I finished Puzzleheart, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think that I would like it better if I read it with my eyes, because listening to it on audiobook, I definitely missed some things. And I think I'll end up rating it higher on reread if I read it physically. And also the narrator I didn't love. They kind of sounded robotic every now and again, almost. And I didn't like the cadence of their speech style. Sorry, I'm working on crochet as we talk, but yeah, I didn't like the cadence of their their speaking style, because it sounded really robotic at times, and I think they were just trying really hard to enunciate because they're reading a middle grade, and you know, young kids need to know how to pronounce things and whatever, but yeah, it just came off robotic for me as a reader. So I think I would like the book a lot better if I read it physically on reread, which hopefully I'll get to at some point. But it's really cute. Like, the ending was really action-packed and kind of intense, and I really like the way that everything resolved with the family and all of that. And then I did finish Frostheart, which I will talk about later because my show's back on. This is why I don't try to plan anything anymore. I left half an hour early to go do barn chores so that I could get done a little quicker, thinking that would be a good plan for the day. And now I'm sitting here stuck in front of a train. When I make plans, God laughs. So this is how I film now, or really do anything now. I've got my ring light there. But I've got Miss Cherry on my lap. She's on a pillow on top of my Taylor Swift blankie. And she settles in and just snoozes while I work. That's how we do things, right? Right, Cherry? Look how precious she is. Look how precious. So you're officially meeting the director of Lovestead Productions. She directs everything. She's the boss. She's the mastermind, to quote Taylor Swift. Don't always see her on camera because she sits on my lap down here. But she is always there. There we go. Now she's settled. She's settled and she says, action. And then when I mess up, she says, cut. Good girl. I hope you are all so lucky to have a director as sweet as Cherry.
Hi friends, it is Saturday, May 31st, and the only book that I've finished since my last check-in was Frostheart by Jamie Littler. I loved this. This was like a perfect little middle grade fantasy, really. The characters were well developed, including all the bad guys and all the non-human characters, like the Leviathans. Really well designed monsters. The world building was excellent. You really could immerse yourself in the world without having moments of like, wait, what? Or confusion, or like unanswered questions about how things in the world work or look or feel. I love the polar setting. Winter is my favorite. I love polar atmospheres. The plot was well paced. It had a nice balance of action and downtime, humor and sorrow, tension and relief, right? It just was very well done, very well paced. Good ups and downs throughout the story. And the ending was super exciting and climactic. And it left you really wanting to get into the next book. Like, I really am so excited to dive into Escape to Aurora. This is a reread for me. And on reread, I think I like this even better than I did the first time. I remember the first time I read it being in a bit of a rush. And I was not in a rush this time. I just like sat back and enjoyed every page and just kind of drank it in. And that's the way to read it. Don't rush through this. Sip it like a fine wine. So let me read you some quotes from in here to see if you would like the writing style. On page 41, Tobu is trying to train Ash to listen to what he calls the world weave so that he'll be a better song weaver. So he says on page, as I said, 41, "You must listen to what the world is telling you," Tobu said. "Feel the shift of the snow beneath your feet, the sturdiness of the earth far below that. Feel the caress of the air around you, the way it cradles you and moves you. Listen to the sound of the wind and what it's saying." And then just like as a good example of how well balanced this is between like serious and humor, right after that, from Ash's point of view, it says, "Tobu was meant to be teaching Ash how to survive." And he was talking about wind. If Tobu wanted to hear wind, he should hang out with Flair, meaning his friend who farts a lot. Like, it's such a good balance of like, oh, the seriousness and the humor. Ash on page 44 is talking about his home, which is called the Fira Stronghold. And it's sort of designed as like this cluster of wooden buildings because they're in a polar landscape, right? So he says he gets up late at night to go just gaze at the village. So it says, "The village lay ahead, so close and yet a world away." Ash had always felt disconnected from the other Fira, but he now felt further away than ever. He could see lantern light shimmering behind the high walls, shining like stars amid the night sky. The only light within uncountable leagues. It looked comforting, Ash thought. Beautiful, even a little lonely. Or was that just how he felt? The clustered dwellings were too numerous to count, and yet no matter how big the village seemed, when you were forced to remain behind its walls, it began to feel very small indeed. It began to feel a lot like a prison. There's also really gorgeous illustrations throughout this story. Like here's a full page one, and that's a Leviathan. And then we have Tobu and Ash and some of the Fira villagers from there. And just throughout this, there's these just really lovely illustrations, and they are done by the author. So not only is Jamie Littler a talented storyteller, he is a talented artist. Oh, there's a little bit of traveler representation in this. I don't know if he even meant there to be, but one of the friends that Ash has, her name is Luna, and she comes from a family of what they call drifters. And she's describing her drifter community on page 195. She says, "All drifters have a map," Luna said with pride. "Drifters ain't like other folk, you know. The clue's in the name. While most have found safety behind walls, us drifters, we just keep on moving. And as long as we keep moving faster than the Leviathans, we'll be just fine. It's the only way to live. I'm telling you, different view every day, wind whipping your hair back, discoveries to be found over the horizon." So, little description of the drifters, which are nomadic people, which I always have my eye out for. I don't travel anymore. I am settled, but I grew up as a traveler. All right, that gives you a pretty good taste of what the writing style is like, some of the art. Let me see. I don't want to show you a lot of the art if it's spoilery. So I'm trying to be kind of picky about what I do show because I don't want it to be an image that would spoil the story for you. Oh, here's Tobu. He's such a grumpy Yeti, but he's got such a good heart. Oh, here's the group that they are with on the Frostheart. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if the camera focuses. But yes, I loved this. I think the first time that I read it, I gave it 3 stars. And on reread, I am giving it 4 stars. If I read it again, it might end up being 5 stars. It's just, I'm having trouble thinking of anything to criticize it for, you know? So if you like middle grade, I definitely recommend this. And I'm very excited to get into the second book in June. That will do it for this vlog. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for those of you that have commented and messaged me comments of support as I went through the past couple of months dealing with what I have. And I've talked about it in more detail on the Discord. And just thank you so much. Like, you really have helped me get through the past couple of months. And you've really helped me keep things in perspective. So I'm not like over exaggerating or getting super upset about something and overreacting to things, right? You really do help me keep in balance. And I'm like gonna start crying here. My nose is running. Yeah, you help me keep my mental health in balance. Like having these friendships that I have here on YouTube and in the Discord, like these aren't just subscribers, right? To me, like, you all are my friends, and I treasure you. I treasure you so much. And I thank you so much for being here, for continuing to show up and being a part of the community and being like the beautiful people that you are. Yeah, I really am getting teary here. So we're gonna call that good for this vlog. If you are enjoying my content, please do make sure to like and subscribe. If you're enjoying it despite me running into some challenges the past few months, like, bless you even more. Yeah, like and subscribe. If you are really feeling at home here, go ahead and join the Discord. Everything is linked down below. And if you just want to leave me an emoji to let me know that you're here, leave me anything that makes you think of winter. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.